McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man. In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode. Today, my guest is the sixth round pick in the 2004 draft. We have Troy Fleming. How you doing today, Troy?
I'm doing good, brother. How about yourself?
Pretty good, man. I'm excited because I never had a fullback come on the show. You're my first fullback. Had a couple running backs, had a couple wide receivers, quarterbacks, but a fullback. Um, It's gonna be fun. I have a lot of questions just because I feel like the fullback, especially now this day and age, is kind of diminished, right? Do you agree with
Yes.
that?
No, I agree with that. I think you can count on a hand how many organizations continue to house fullbacks, and
Mhm.
I know that Kansas City is definitely one.
Yeah.
I don't know if Green Bay still does.
Mhm.
Uh, in Miami, I think did in the last few years. So, I mean, we've been replaced with H backs, which I tell everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks H back can be a fullback, but the fullback can be an H back, but an H back can't be a fullback because it's a mentality. When you got to go in there and you're 5 yards apart, and you're going there against a guy that's 6'4", 250, and your whole purpose is to basically it's a train wreck, car wreck right
Mhm.
there in the hole. Uh, and you're not used to doing that. You're
Uh-huh.
used to, going in motion, doing a little lean blocking and slipping into the flat or doing a little 1-2 second block. I mean, constant banging, it's a mental thing. It's a mental approach to playing fullback, and everybody's not built to do that.
Okay, and that's an interesting aspect right there from that point of view. I like that. Never heard that because I was gonna say like you would think that they would put more, like you said, like more like tight ends and fill up that role, but that mentality part, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk about growing up. You were born in Franklin, right?
Born and raised, yep, for 18 years.
Okay. And how was it growing up, and what were your hobbies when you were younger? What sports? I think you did track and field.
Yeah, I went to Battleground Academy, from 7th grade through 12th grade. I went to the various elementary schools. My favorite one is still Liberty Elementary over there off Liberty Pike. But
Okay.
went to BGA in 7th grade. There I was lettered in football, basketball, and track. Growing up in the neighborhood, I grew up in Cadet, over there off Liberty Pike, off Reveille Court. We in our cul-de-sac, we played every game. One of my best friends, childhood friends, his name is Marcel Scales. He's now the track coach, I believe, at Cumberland, maybe. He grew up across the street from me, so he was an Olympic. Not he was Olympic, qualified for the Olympics. Was an Olympic trial runner, and he also won the NCAA 100 meters. So
Oh.
growing up, all we did was race, play in the dirt trails. Our biggest game, even though it was basketball, was Foursquare. His dad went down to the cul-de-sac. Foursquare squares are maybe 5 by 5, but he made it where they were like 15 by 15. So you were forced to have to run, show your athletic ability. And people might say, "Man, you're just pulling our leg," but literally, I credit playing Foursquare and the incline. So we're at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. So we're having to run, dive. You got scraped knees, and I mean, the line would be so long, be 15, 20 people deep wanting to play Foursquare. And honestly, that's probably my favorite game growing up as a kid.
Course, Grant. And I feel like nowadays, like people don't understand that. Like, my kids growing up, the generation nowadays is like everyone's inside. You never see kids just out and about, like in the street, just with groups of kids just playing games and stuff. It's kind of sad, man. It kind of sucks.
No, I got 4 kids, man. I got a 15-year-old daughter that's a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
She's actually on her way to Georgia. She should have made it now, running track for high school, Hardin Valley here for Knoxville, Tennessee. And I got a son, my only son, and I got who's 12, 7th grader. Got two younger daughters. One's a 10-year-old fourth grader who just won the All right. Her little elementary school 400-meter
Cool.
race yesterday. So shout out to Noel. Congratulations. And my favorite, and I hate to say it, my favorite 6-year-old is my youngest Paige. They're all athletic kids and
Mhm.
they love to play though. I force them to go outside. They
There you
get tired of me saying back in the day when I was growing up, we were
go.
always outside. They was like, dude, you're like 60 years old. I'm like, dude, I'm only 44, man. Get it right.
Yeah.
But they play outside. I force them to go outside.
Good, good. I think we should have at least some time where everything should be limited. And yeah, it's weird to hear. And a lot of people, I started saying the same, the same phrases. Back in the day, I used to go outside all the time, and we wouldn't, it's like, well, when did you, know that, you had to go home? I'm like, well, when the sun started going down, you better get your ass back inside because if not, you're gonna get whooped. So that
That street light hit, you already knew. If you weren't near in the vicinity of your house, you were in trouble.
Yeah, that's it. It was just a sixth sense, man. So, but that's awesome. Especially for your kids. That's awesome that they continue and they're still achieving and stuff like that. So it's always good. It's a different mindset, especially being a parent and stuff. And now you're teaching your kids, the ins and outs of sport
Mhm.
and stuff, and not to push too much. I was a baseball coach, and just the parents were kind of like overly like just going crazy barking at this, and the kids would burn out because
Yeah,
you forcing them to play baseball 365 days of the year and not giving them a break and stuff, and then they're burnt out. So it's
yeah.
you know these parents a little wild sometimes. Um, Talking about uh, BJA, Battleground Academy, my boy and your boy Ben Troop was like, "Hey man, he needs to tell you how much of a beast he was back in the day playing Battleground." That's what he told me. That's where he texted me. I said, "I'll ask him, ask him." He said you were beasting it over there. How'd you do over there, man?
It's been so long, man. I don't, for me, when I go back and think about it, because in my current job where I'm at, I'm a principal, but you
Okay.
know, and thinking about the time at BGA is some of the best memories of my life because growing up, you're coming into your own. I'm a historian when it comes to sports and particularly football. I grew up collecting cards.
Okay.
I grew up knowing every single fact and piece of data that I could about high school sports in Middle Tennessee area. I was a scrapbooker. So for me, I would sit in the house and envision days when it was my turn to get to high school because my cousin OJ Fleming went to Vanderbilt. He graduated from BGA in '94. And then my other cousin, Lamont Turner, who graduated in '96, they both went to Vanderbilt
Okay.
along with Jason Donovan from BGA, who was part of the '94 class. And seeing those guys play and I'm like, I can't wait till I get my chance to get to high school. I
Hmm.
just want to play. I want to show people what I can do because I was a decent athlete in middle school. I didn't think I was the greatest,
Hmm.
but I thought I was pretty good. Then my coach Peter Thurman at the time, I'll never forget, it was homecoming my freshman year. He was like, "Hey man, we're 5-0. We got a really good chance of running the tables and winning the state." My starting quarterback, who's at the time was Nathan Mertz, he was like, I really don't want Mertz to get hurt playing corner. I'm gonna put you out there and see what you can do. And no shade to Lighthouse Christian. I mean, we beat them 83-6, but and we could have
Oh
we
God.
could have we could have beat them 100-0, but coach wouldn't let us do that.
Oh
Uh,
God.
and man, we got in. I played. I started. We ended up running the table, beating Brewston Central, Hollow Rock that year for the state championship in '95. We ended up winning 3 out of 4. Lost my sophomore year in the semifinals to DCA. And, I had a great run at BGA. We had a great run. I have to say we because I got my teammates, particularly my senior year, my boys, my cousin Avery Fleming, who I don't think too many cousins were ever Mr. Football Award winners in the
Hmm.
same year. We pulled that off along with, my buddy Scott Wade, Brian Price, Brandon Schroeder, David Dawson, Jonathan Minner. Those guys were my starting offensive line. And I mean, those guys, I got all the glory because I was chasing the national record, but those guys paved the way, particularly my senior year. It was a fun run for us. The one thing we regret was we'll still say it to this day, getting robbed in our sophomore year by the bogus referees over there at Donaldson Christian Academy,
Okay.
uh, giving them the championship semifinal game. Um, I enjoyed it. I had a good time. The one thing I regret about high school though is
Mhm.
not winning Mr. Football as a sophomore. Back in the '90s, it was always about the older guy.
Mhm.
Uh, you don't set the state rushing record as a sophomore with almost 3,000 yards and don't win Mr. Football. So I want my Mr. Football award.
Well, it sounds like you had a hell of a run. and
Mhm.
and still transpired into college and stuff. Now when it came to college, like we know, you went to
Mhm.
University of Tennessee. Was there any other school that you wanted to look? Because again, like you kind of stayed locally, and we'll obviously talk about that being, born in Tennessee, going to University of Tennessee, playing for the Tennessee Titans. It's kind of like a dream come true if you think about it, man. That's pretty wild. You don't get that much.
You don't. I looked up, I think Keith Brooking, who
Okay.
played for the Falcons, from Georgia, went to Georgia Tech, played for Atlanta
Okay.
Falcons. And I think there's a couple other guys that did that.
Hmm.
Um, so, you know, I wanted to go when I was coming out. I was looking Tennessee. I really didn't follow. I was a fan of Tennessee. I was
Hmm.
also a fan of LSU and Notre Dame growing up,
Okay.
and kind of Ohio State because we got a lot of Big Ten games in Middle Tennessee, which I didn't really think about back in the day when Big Ten was really high on
Mhm.
ABC. And really, a funny story was I was getting recruited. I went to the shoe store in Cool Springs Mall, which I don't think it's even a business anymore. I was getting an application. Um, and we stopped on our way back to go to BGA, and my quarterback Jay Davis we stopped at the store, and a guy from LSU was in line, and he was buying something, and I'm being curious. I'm like, wonder where he's going. I'm like, I know he ain't going to Franklin High School. I know he ain't going to Centennial. They ain't got nobody over there. Uh, and he's like, man. I said, who are you here to see? He said, I'm just here looking at some recruits around. I got to go to some school over here around the road. I don't know where it is. Long story short, I get back. I get a PA call over the system. Troy, can you come down to the gym? I come down to the gym. I walk in. I'm like, dude, I could have just showed you he was coming to BGA. I was he said, I just saw you at the gas station. I was like, yeah. He said, I'm actually coming to see you. And so I've been a fan of LSU
Hmm.
probably more than anything because Kevin Falk was one of my favorite running backs growing up.
Okay.
And long story short, fast forward, when I was getting drafted, I got to go to New England to visit with the Patriots. I met him and Tom Brady, and I was actually more excited to meet Kevin Falk than I
Oh,
was Tom Brady coming out because I always grew up idolizing Kevin Falk. But it came down to really when Tennessee won the national championship in '98 with a bunch of underclassmen. I kind of was like, you know what, I got an opportunity to go win the national championship. I plan on redshirting because they had Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, Travis Stevens, and then Ontario Smith and I were coming in together as the other two running backs. And it came down to Tennessee. And the night before signing day, Ohio State called and it's like, hey, hold off. We want to get you up on a visit. And I was like, no, my heart's pretty much sold on Tennessee. And it was. I mean, and when you're young, you're making a decision at 18, you don't think about, or when I'm done playing,
yeah. What's gonna happen next? Or
what's
what?
going to happen next?
Yeah.
I've been in Knoxville on and off now. I'm a Knoxvillian. So, I hate saying that, but I love saying it because, Middle Tennessee is so fond to me. But I
Hmm.
love it here in Knoxville. And I've been here since on and off since '99, but really since 2008, I've been here in Knoxville. And I do radio up here for the Vol games, pregame and postgame. And
Okay.
so you never know what happens, with just making a decision as an 18-year-old with
Yeah.
college. And so chose Tennessee, man. And halfway through, I thought I regretted it, but I didn't. And it didn't pan out the way I wanted to be. I got moved to fullback. Some contentious conversations with me and the coaches. And like anybody that comes in, you just want an opportunity to compete.
Yeah.
Um, and they move me to fullback, and they say, "Oh, you remind me of this or that." And I went at it the wrong way now, being 44, looking at it.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted to transfer to out of there to Vanderbilt to Ole Miss because Cutcliffe was my
Okay.
first recruiter, and he was at Ole Miss. But I think his respect and loyalty to the coaching staff here, where he just won a national championship with, was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna poke any of your players, but Vanderbilt, I think Woody Woodenhopper was still coach.
Hmm.
I could have came back to Nashville. I went to Vanderbilt and had a great career as a running back, but then you never know. So
So
I'm
what did they tell you? What year was it when they told you, hey, we're gonna try to switch you to fullback? And what did they tell you? What was the reason?
So I found out when we got here, they used to pair freshmen with seniors. So we kind
Okay.
of big brother, and they gave me Philip Crosby. I'm like, what the hell? That's a fullback. And, I was like, nah, boss. We had a team meeting that night. I walked across the aisle, went straight to John Chavis, and was like, hey, I'm gonna play linebacker for you. He's like, come on. And my best friend and brother now, it was at the time we were coming, it was Eddie Moore from South Pittsburgh, Tennessee.
Okay.
Eddie ended up being a second round draft pick of the Dolphins
Mhm.
in 2003. And I said, hell, I'm going to go play linebacker with my buddy. So I went over there and played linebacker really like half my freshman year until Philip Crosby, who was a starter, got hurt. And then Will Bartholomew, who is known for his D1s, and he ended up getting hurt too. So I got a phone call as a freshman from Randy Sanders. He left it on my, and this is how old we are. He left it on my voicemail in my dorm room. Said, hey, T-Roy, I need to come over here and holler at me before practice. I said, what's this crap? Get over there. They said, we want you to come over and play a little fullback just to, we need reassurance that we can have some backups. And
That's what they sold you on, huh?
yeah, I got over there. And the funniest story is me and Anthony Sessions, who is from Georgia. He was a cousin of Dwayne Goodrich, but Anthony Sessions, we called him Wody because that's all he used to ever say was Wody this, Wody son. Like I guess it's a Georgia slang.
Uh-huh.
Coach Foreman got so pissed because he was like, go in there and blow somebody up. I was like, man, I ain't finna blow nobody up, man. I went in there and I just stopped. And then he wanted to hit him. And I went in it such the wrong way. But as we're older, the guys we talk about it all the time because I was like, I'm not playing fullback. But I'm a team player,
Hmm.
swallowing my pride, knowing that I already built a bond and a brotherhood with these dudes. So I thought to myself, like, if I bail on them, that's just a poor example of when adversity comes and you can't handle it, you look for the fast option to
Yeah.
bail. But see, that's pre-NIL world. I'm what I'm saying? So nowadays, if a kid's like, I'm trying to get on the field, they're gonna give me some money. I'm gonna tell them, hey man, go get your money. But back in the day, I would have been like, oh no, man, just stick it out. Let's
Hmm.
work, let's grind it out, let's get it. Because when nobody really getting money like that nowadays. Well, back in those days.
Yeah, yeah. Well, kudos to you too to kind of swallowing your pride, especially the younger mindset, man. That's pretty much what you have is your pride and stuff. And for them to switch it and switch you up like that,
Mhm.
what was the most difficult part, the transitioning from running back to a fullback? Was it like what you said earlier about like the blocking, like hitting
Yeah,
one night on?
the blocking, man. Honestly, I never really lifted weights in high school except in the summertime.
Hmm.
And I redshirted and literally lifted weights 4 days a week. And my body went from slim, skinny, about 215 to like big and bulky 225. And eventually I bulked up to like 235. But I was strong as an ox. So once I got the weight and the strength, playing fullback didn't really bother me because my goal then was to see if I could fold you like a lawn chair in a hole because I was really strong. I ended up, setting the squat record for fullbacks with 665 pounds. Uh, and once that confidence in my body grew, um, the blocking was nothing. I learned to use my hands. I
Hmm.
got a concussion in the 2000 LSU game kickoff using my head. And after that, I realized use your hands. And
Hmm.
I've used my hands ever since then. I never had another concussion in my life. And that was one of the things as I transitioned to the NFL. I never forget the time in Denver when Titans cut me and I went out to Denver and
Hmm.
Shanahan yelling, oh, you're big and physical. You should be blowing guys in the hole up. I'm like, bro, like we doing half line and we got two fullbacks, me and Kyle Johnson, and he's injured. And I'm over here going half line right, half line left. I'm like, dude, screw this crap, man. I just position block, and still then, not too many guys were going to be stronger than me because I could bench 485.
Hmm.
It's like I can position block you. And so nowadays, I watch guys that play fullback in college, play fullback in NFL. They're using their hands and their position blocking. They're getting in the way for like at 1, 2, 3 seconds, and the running back can get through the hole. And I thought, I was doing that 15, 20 years ago, and I was getting reprimanded for it. Now
How they're doing it.
everybody's like, position blocking, just get in his way for a couple seconds. I'm like, man, piss on that.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially the blocking. I would assume the fullback that was probably the strongest part. Now, when you got drafted by the Tennessee Titans, at that moment in time, did you? Because most for the most part, people just want to have a chance to play. Doesn't matter what team. Was there any teams that were interested in you that you talked to before, or did you know the Titans already had kind of interest in their visit?
No, so it's funny. Jeff Fisher, remember when Hard Rock Cafe used to be downtown Nashville? I don't know if you were.
Yeah.
So Coach Fisher show, he had Player of the Year, and I won Co-Player of the Year. Me and rest in peace to Santonio Beard. He was the other one that won Co-Player of the Year, and Coach Fisher made a comment. Where are you going to college? You know how Coach Fisher is. You know he's all over the place. He was kind of sporadic. He's having 17 different conversations at one time, and he's like, "Well, hopefully we'll see you later on down the road." I was like, "Okay." And, so I'm prepped for the draft, and I was projected to be a third round pick by many people. My junior year of college, when I was mad at the coach, I was like, "Screw it, I'm just going to go to the NFL. I don't get drafted. I'm going to graduate anyways. I just go do whatever in my life." And they were like, "You were a sixth round pick." So then came back and went to my senior year and had a great senior year, and then ended up still getting picked in the sixth round, but I was projected to go third round.
Hmm.
Um, I won't tell you why, but when I got to the Titans, the coach pulled me to the side and he said, "You were supposed to go third round, but the reason why you didn't go is certain coaches were saying this about you."
Oh, damn.
And he was like, and I take this man's word as gold. Um, I take that man's word as gold. I don't think that he would ever lie to me.
Hmm.
And a lot of people know who I'm talking about. And he was a man of faith and good character. So he was going to tell me the truth. So he told me, and I thought, wow. I forgave the coach because eventually that coach was coaching college and got fired. So I ended up calling him, and even when he got fired, I still called him and said, "Hey, we went through these trenches. I hate to see that you got fired."
Hmm.
But I ended up visiting with Jacksonville.
Okay.
I ended up going and visiting with Philadelphia, and I went on a visit to New England right after they had won the Super Bowl. And then I was on the phone, had phone interviews with three other teams. I know Denver and Seattle was another one.
Hmm.
Uh, and went up to, like I said, went traveled to New England, met Belichick. Didn't know he was. I think he was telling me about. He was obviously they know they do their research.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know about Franklin Nashville, and he was telling me I think he was born here or whatever. He was like, yeah, whatever, and he was telling me all this stuff, and I was like, okay, pretty cool. Uh, went to Philadelphia. I really thought I was going to go to Philly.
Okay.
Uh, met them, had a great conversation with them. Met Harold Carmichael, who was like the most funniest person I ever met in my life. And I didn't know he was that big of a receiver, man. I thought, geez Louise, this dude play receiver. But like, it's like I even met Pepper Johnson because he was
Okay.
line coach for New England. I thought, dude, I got your card. I was like, I remember watching you with, you know, with LT and Eric Carson and Gary Reasons. And I'm like, man, this dude's big. Uh, and so I really thought Philly
Hmm.
and New England were the two. Certain coach in New England, I ain't gonna say his name, but he was a dick. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. He's trying to act like he was the end all that be all,
Oh, I hate those too.
and he's asking me questions in different terminology, and
Hmm.
I'm explaining to him in my UT terminology. He's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, bro, like, how you know my playbook? I know
Yeah.
my playbook. I'm explaining you. You calling it a tom and a bubble. I'm calling it this. I'm like, it's the same thing. He's just going on and on, and so didn't end up being New England. So I ended up getting the phone call because what's funny is when the Titans called, and I lived in Fox Lake apartment here in Knoxville off Cedar Bluff, poor cell phone reception. So
I've been in Knoxville. Yeah, y'all,
you
y'all.
had to be in my room. You had to be in the corner. It's the only spot in my room the cell phone would work. So I'm in the corner, phone going in and out, and I'm like, this is such from. I'm like, what? They're from the Tennessee. What? And it's like, and I clicked over to talk to them because I was on the phone with Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh goes, "We're closing out. We may select you. If we
Mhm.
don't, we want to sign you as a free agent." I was like, cool. They ended up signing Fast Willie Parker, the running back. So instead of because I was looked at as a tweener coming out.
Hmm.
Pittsburgh was looking at me as a tweener, or the Titans were looking at me as a fullback. So then I clicked back over because the Titans were beeping in and I could barely hear them. And then talked to Jeff, talked to Floyd, I talked to Sherman Smith, I talked to all of them. And then how small the world is. I'd heard so much about Sherman Smith from
Hmm.
friends because I mentioned earlier my childhood friend who was the track guy, Marcel Scales. He went to MTSU and was the 100-meter NCAA champion.
Hmm.
He ended up being friends with Sherman's son. And so I went to UT with Sherman's daughter. And I was dating a girl at the time that was friends with her. So it's funny how it all connected that way that I ended up knowing his son and daughter through that way. And they spoke so highly of their dad.
We got 5 minutes to a switch. 5 minutes to a switch.
I do apologize. I'm still at school.
No, it's all
Um,
right, man. It's all right.
but that's
Eric is right as here. Eric is right as here.
that's how I ended up knowing them. And that's
That's
how it ended up happening. Yeah.
now how's those visitations happen, especially like going to visit the Patriots and the Eagles? It's almost same kind of like by the book, like they have a couple days planned out for you. They take you around, the facility. How does that work? They take you to dinner. They pay for dinner, right?
Yeah, mine was a 1-day trip, if I can remember the most. I know when I flew into Boston, it was raining.
Okay.
It's a bad sign. And so it was raining, cold. When I went to Jacksonville, it was so windy. It was beautiful, but windy, and it kind of reminded me of San Diego a lot. And when I went to Philly, it's just something about Philly, like just the vibe, just the
Okay.
whole aura of just Philadelphia. And so it was a day visit. They come in, they fly you in, obviously put you up. You get up the next day, you go to the facility, you tour the facility, you tour locker room, you sit down with coaches, you talk to coaches, you meet the staff, you meet the owners, you meet everybody, and just they basically talk about what their expectations they were to draft you, where you fit in their organization, and how they see you, and what they would like for you to do. And it's because it's funny because I never had any talks other than my interview with the Titans in Indianapolis at the Combine.
Hmm.
I talked to a bunch of teams because when I got hurt, because I ended up getting hurt and getting cut,
Hmm.
some of the teams I talked to reached out because I still, after my post Titans, when I wasn't fully healed, I went to Buffalo. I went to Buffalo for a workout. I went to Cleveland. I went to Seattle, which I flew all the way out there, and it was like, well, it's something we saw on your X-rays. Well, you can't work out. I'm like, bro, I flew halfway across the country to this place, and I can't work out. I was like, no, boss, something got to give. And so I never had much conversation with Titans, and they ended up drafting me.
That's
Uh, so it's just weird.
interesting. Now when you get to Tennessee and stuff, what was the running back room look like? What did it look like at that? You had what? You had Jared Payne?
Yeah, when I got there, so Jared Payton and Ronald McClendon, who we call Goldie,
Yep.
he played at Ole Miss. They got signed as free agents, and I think there was another gentleman named Vic,
Okay.
uh, who I think played at either Southern Miss or small school, and then
Was
there
it
was
Chris Brown? No,
no, and
Travis.
CB was already there. He
CB.
got drafted. He got drafted prior to that,
Hmm.
and so he was there already, and because I mean I remember him being there because he ran well in the AFC Championship game
Hmm.
against Baltimore the previous year, I think in 2003. So and CB at the time I thought, man, this dude's weird, but ended up being a great friend of mine, um, and love him to death. But then now you get to know him. He didn't really say much,
Hmm.
but he knows his stuff. Chris is a great teammate. Matter of fact, when I went to Houston for work training here recently, where I took the job as a principal in training, but now I'm the interim principal because, long story short, the lead principal left for whatever reason. She had to leave, and so I went down to a train. I hit him up. I went by his house and hung out with him and his because I remember his youngest son Blaine was recently just born when we were at the Titans, and now he's like a freshman or sophomore at Rice playing baseball. And I thought, dude, this Blaine.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then it's just crazy. So I got to catch up with him, and I still stay in touch with Jared Payton too. Matter of fact, I got to go to Chicago in May for graduation for a principal training.
Hmm.
Hang out with him. So, but they were all in the room when I got in there, and they brought in Antoine Smith came the second year in '05.
Okay.
Robert Holcomb was there as well. He was the other fullback.
Mr. Nick, can
Yeah.
you come to the front, please?
Somebody
Yeah.
in the front.
Nick, I know, right? But yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
All right. And just talking about that running back just room, just your teammates and stuff, who did you get close to? Yeah, I know you said Chris Brown was a weird dude. You became friends with him, and then Jerry
Mhm.
Payton. Anyone else, especially from that offense?
Honestly, I'm gonna be real with you.
Yeah.
I talked a lot to Drew Bennett, because Drew's just if you didn't like Drew Bennett, then you were an evil person. That's how I looked at it. Like, he is such a great dude.
Yeah.
And most of the other guys I talked to Keith Bullock a lot. He called me Troy Boy, and Keith's just a cool dude. I mean, you weren't gonna bombard him with a lot of questions and a lot of nonsense conversations, but he's
Absolutely.
gonna chop it up with you.
Hmm.
Great dude. And I would say obviously Albert Haynesworth because we were classmates at UT in '99, and so that, and then really I talked to Steve. Steve was a great dude. Talked to him a lot when I came in, and that's pretty much most of it. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Members of the
What were
foundation.
your strengths and weaknesses as a fullback?
We have the
Like,
Nova in the gym. We have
Mhm.
the Gene in the games
Give me
room.
1 second.
We have Peter in the YAI room, and we have Miss Alexa in the multi-purpose room. Once again, also, if you want to come to the gym, come up to the front desk. You have the YAI room with Miss Lakita, games room with Miss Jean, multi-purpose room with Miss Alexis. And if you're going to the gym, you need to come up to the front desk. Thank you.
We're in a shared space right now, so they're calling, so we've taught them, man, get off the PA. Don't be talking all day. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I understand.
What was your question? I'm sorry, Alex.
What was your strength and weaknesses as a fullback coming into the NFL?
I say strength or athleticism. They
Oh,
were surprised at how fast I was,
okay.
how strong I was, or really how quick I was. When at some point as the season went on, running backs got banged up. I got to put a little running back, maybe 3 or 4 of the last games. Mike Heimerdinger was a big advocate of mine. Coach, Heimerdinger was a great dude. They ended up knowing his son a little bit, but he would advocate for me, and got to play scout team receiver a lot just to have fun. And
Mhm.
matter of fact, they were shocked when I asked to do kickoff returns. Eventually, got demoted from it, but when I when I asked to do it, he didn't think I could be able to do it.
Jordan Stinson is right here. Jordan Stinson is right here.
His rights here.
Yeah, I know. And so at Heimerdinger, he was like, because we were in the bubble, and I ran a 20-yard comeback against the starter corner, and came back, caught it, made a move, and it came back to the huddle. He was like, if you keep doing, he cussed all the time. You keep doing stuff like that, man, might have to find some more plays for you. I was like, hey, give me plays, man. I'm all for it. But I was a huge fan of Mike's. I was a little upset when he left and went to New York. Um, and I don't play for the Titans anymore, so I can say what I feel. They just, um, and so they could have just, because he went to New York, they could have paid the man, but they ended up bringing him back. I think they ended up bringing him back maybe, or tried to, whatever. But like, oh, he went to Denver, which is how I ended up going to Denver, because when the Titans cut me
Uh-huh.
start of the '06 season when I was still injured, I missed the whole year in '06 and really almost '07, that whole offseason.
Hmm.
Signed with Denver, and it was because of Mike Heimerdinger.
Gotcha. And you said they didn't bring them back because they were too cheap. I mean, it's it's happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to that, like literally, I remember the day the Titans rolled in here. I remember when they were the Memphis Oilers or
Mhm.
or Memphis, whatever, and then they played the Liberty Bowl and they became the Nashville, I think, at Vanderbilt in '97. I think they played there maybe a couple of years and eventually when Adelphia Coliseum opened in '99. You know, I think between '99 and '03, the Titans were rolling, man. I mean,
Yeah, they were.
they were it. And I don't know where Dinger fit in. He was
Uh-huh.
the QB coach or the OC of the whole time, but they were cooking and I'm thinking like, shucks, I got drafted by the Titans. I'm going home in '04, like we about to, and then
And then
da-da-da, da-da-da, Titans and Eddie George, can't figure things out. Eddie George is a Dallas Cowboy. I'm like, what the hell? What? And I'll say, speaking of other guys, Kevin Carter was another guy because I remember thinking about Kevin. I think he was another cool dude and a veteran leader because, when Eddie left, they had just like veterans like that. But Eddie still came around some before he went to Dallas.
yeah,
But it's like that type of stuff where I still to this day, I jump on and jump off the Titan bandwagon when it comes to draft season because
definitely.
they like they like can't get right in the movie life, man. They just can't get it right, dude.
You're right. Absolutely. I had Kevin Carter on as well. Really good guy. Kevin is,
Great dude.
yeah, he's cool. Let's talk a little bit about um how do you work with your teammates, especially other backs? Like how was that rotation? How was, sharing the load and getting more snaps compared to maybe someone else getting more snaps? It has to be kind of like, I would assume, kind of just unselfishness, right? Because it kind of sucks. You want to play, but then you get switched on and off.
Yeah, so the mindset once you get to the league,
Okay.
it's much you know what your role is.
Okay.
If you can tell early on how the rotation is going in OTAs,
Hmm.
whether you're going to be in that mixed come fall camp, and then if your position is limited, like if they only got three of you, like at time fullback, it's like, okay, there's the starter. What can I see the starter's weaknesses where I can make sure that my skill is better than that? And then where do I stand from an athletic perspective
Okay.
for that? Oh, how good am I on special teams? So then that's where I was like, well, you know what? If I'm gonna get my playing time, it's gonna be special teams. I'm
Hmm.
big, fast, strong. I'm gonna go out there and I'm just gonna wage war on people and do what I can do. And so for me, I jumped in like I'm gonna be a special teamer until they started to give me more rotations or no rotational reps. Um,
You asked to be on special teams, or they kind of put you?
they put me there, but I was watching, trying to work my way up, and I thought I'm looking at some of these dudes, and I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
don't even know why this dude here. So I'm like, I might have to go ahead and take his spot on special teams, and for me, I just worked my way up, and got to play on special teams because I was like, this is where I'm going to get to play, and then eventually I got more reps. In my rookie year at fullback, Robert Holcomb was a great dude, and learned a lot from him. Great professional dude, awesome dude, and and I realized, it's a business. So however they decide to handle it with us, I was going to accept it, and but my thing was I'm going to go out here and get on special teams and make plays.
Definitely. Now, how do you handle criticism or setbacks?
I would say like even I can even remember like when I got cut and everybody was like they cut Troy Fleming. I was like why? Like he was growing, he was doing well. Um, I know why they cut me, and I don't even care to this day. I'll tell you how I feel here in a second. But like when I
Yeah.
got cut, I'm not gonna lie, I was depressed and upset because I was like, I was just getting ready to get rolling,
Hmm.
going into my third year. But at the end of the day, it was like it's a business. They made their decision. I'm gonna move on. And I end up still was hurt. Um, and they tried to get me to, come back in preseason. My agent was like, shut it down, get an injury settlement, move on to another team. You can see the writings on the wall. And that's just what I did. Never ended up playing another regular season after that. I ended up getting an injury settlement for year three. And then I went on to training camp in '07 with Denver and '08 with Carolina. And after that, based the phone stopped ringing. So I moved on. And you know, it was one of those things where, and they were fresh off. You know, I think Vince came in. They drafted Vince. There was a whole thing with Vince and that. And Vince teammate Ahmad came, and nothing against Ahmad. Ahmad Hall. He ended up having a great career with the Titans. But you know, that's just how the cookie crumble. My issue was more with Norm. What's his name? He was a Norm Child. I couldn't stand Norm Child. I thought he was full of shit.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's just how I feel to this day. Ain't got nothing good to say about him.
Mhm.
I think he's just full of shit. And excuse my language for my family if they're watching this, but this is how I feel. I thought, I'm not an idiot. I would go to him and say, "Hey, man, you're reducing my reps with this H-back stuff." And
Uh-huh.
he's like, "No, we're trying to see these things." And I said, I could play H-back too. Oh yeah, we know that. And so I'm just like, I called my agent and told him at the time, and he was like, "No, they're preparing to cut you." And I saw I could see the writing on the wall. He's like, "Do you all remember everything you do in practice is an audition for somebody else because
Yeah.
somebody asked for tape or whatever?" So I did that and ended up getting hurt when we went to Austin P for training camp in like '06 and ended up tearing cartilage in my knee. Um, and it was a small piece of cartilage, but it was in a peculiar spot where I was, where just like where I was really explosive at. And my explosiveness and power just went away.
Okay.
And my ability to get to top end speed. And it still bothers me to this day, which it was just a fluke. I was going to kick Kyle Vandenbosch out on a kick out block and stepped in the ground and river just the grass went out from underneath my cleat and boom, a knee pop and swelled up to the size of two softballs, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, who I guess like if you look at like the fullback position, right? Like you I know that's how I would see it. Like you mix match with like just like QB and running back, they have to like kind of be synced together. Um, I would say the same thing with like a fullback and a running back as well. Who did you sync up the most, or who I guess not sync up, but like had that rhythm or just that 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 chemistry with?
I, well, it took me a minute to get synced up with Chris because Chris just a long stride and had a different vision, which was nothing bad. But
Okay.
see, he could see things from a totally different perspective. And when you watch film, he'd be like, "Yeah, I see that." But what he sees is not what I see because 3 yards makes a big difference, particularly in the NFL when a hole is going to be about this big for about a half a second.
Yeah.
Uh, Me and Antoine Smith linked up though when Colin Twan came over from New England. Um, we linked up and it had a really good chemistry. He wasn't as quick and explosive as Chris was at the time. He was an
Hmm.
older back, but Twan was still had that vision and just had just that feel for finding the sweet spot.
Hmm.
And we linked up, and we also hung out some a lot. Chris and I hung out few and here or there outside of work, but me and Twan had a good connection.
Gotcha. And that for the most part, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's how you kind of especially work together is like, hey, this is what I see. What do you see when, you're looking at a defense and kind of that's interesting though, the stride you said, right? So you kind of had every running back or the backs that played with not mimic their style, but know their style and how they ran, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris was a he was 6'3".
Okay.
So he's 6'3", about 225, long stride, about a 4.45. He could run, and he had just a different vision.
Hmm.
And then Batuan being about 6'1", older. I think he might have been in his like seventh year in the league, and at that time, and won a Super Bowl, and just been was with Buffalo and New England, and his knack was I'm slow to the hole because I know where the hole is going to be at.
Hmm.
I'm fast through the hole. And Twan was just one of those things where he also got up there. He was like, "Man, I'm a veteran." He goes, I'm just playing to get it stacking years, not trying to get hurt." He goes, "I've had my time." He goes, "I'm here to help Chris and you all." So
That's
yeah.
that's so what were your goals each season? Was there like a certain numbers you wanted, certain like receptions? Because I know that you had think what, 2 receiving touchdowns?
I see it 2 or 3, or I think I see it 2, 3, or 4. I can't remember, somewhere around. I didn't have any rushing touchdowns, I don't believe.
So like is there like a number like you kind of look forward to like, hey, in the beginning of the season, like hopefully I can get maybe rush this many times, this many yards or receiving wise, or it's kind of like you just kind of go with it.
I kind of went with the flow. For me, it was at that time running. I wasn't gonna unless they moved me to running back or tailback. If there was injuries, I wasn't going to get many carries. So
Mhm.
100 yards on a season would be a goal, rushing. But more for me was more about 300 or 400 yards receiving and
Okay.
about 4 touchdowns. Because I mean, I had great hands. Didn't
Mhm.
know it. I got to college. They never caught a ball, but maybe like 3 balls in high school.
Mhm.
Uh, but then it was more about the yardage, and really it was more about playing time because you get playing time incentives in NFL, and you also get playing time check for amount of times you play, like the number of plays you play. They
Mhm.
multiply and you get it paid out somewhere like in March for like that playing time bonus or whatever what we called it. So for me, it was just getting on there, and really year one I knew Holcomb was there.
Okay.
Year two was the year I wanted to start. Holcomb ended up getting cut. I ended up starting some year two, and then trying to find my way is different as a backup and then being a starter
Okay.
because as a starter you're counted from really kind of every play, but right out the gate that mentality is I'm out right straight out the gate. I don't have time to feel around and see how it goes. Whereas a backup, you may come in, you may feel around here, feel around there. Okay, I'm only going in for these few plays now, but when I come back, I got the feel of the flow.
Gotcha.
And for me, year two being a starter throughout the season, it was like, okay, now you got to bring it every single play. And then as the season went on, and the Titans were horrible at that time. It was we were 4-12, I think, the year before, and then we ended up getting. I call him, and he used to get mad when I called him this, but Adam Bernard Jones, he came on, and he was big. He was electrifying. And we got a game better. I thought we had a good draft class that year in '05 with those guys. And then really it was more the thing of just, again, then Peyton Manning and Brandon Stokely now set the passing record. I think he broke Dan Marino's 50 touchdowns in the season. And I knew right then you can say goodbye to fullbacks because they was going to bring in extra receivers to have on the roster because now it started to transition into what it is now today, a passing game.
Definitely. Especially fullbacks, man. And those a fun position to watch too.
Mhm.
Especially see those big boys out there. Um,
Mhm.
the transition from year one to year two, what other than obviously your confidence or already being 1 year in the league, what was the biggest difference that transition to year two with the Titans?
For me, it was getting bigger
Big.
because I
Okay.
had more reps. So I went from 235 as a rookie to 255.
Damn.
Uh, and I was able to maintain my speed. And so it was getting bigger and getting stronger. And, guys in the league at that time weren't really focused on that. It
Mhm.
was more like maintaining. But I know Steve Watterson, who I think was the strength coach at the time, he's the first time he introduced me to kettlebells. We used to do, he introduced kettlebells to us. And so trying to do those kettlebell workouts and those types of things, and that was the biggest jump for me. And then also too, uh, getting more acclimated to the scheme of the game, as in watching more and more in film. You know, they're one of the reasons why I got into coaching is no slight against my coaches coming out of high school, but like I walked into UT, my mom was blown to know that I played cover three the whole time in high school. I just knew it was 3D.
Oh, I get what you're talking about. Okay.
So now it's like I never want another player if I am in their vicinity or I have an influence in life to not know. So for me, it just became a knowledge thing where I was grabbing all kind of film, requesting film. I still have all my CDs or DVDs of film from the
Mhm.
Titans in a
I need
in a file. So I go back and I watch those things all the time. And so I was just grabbing those and wanted to equip myself and increase my knowledge of the game so that I can help the next generation of kids, which is what I do now. Alongside being a principal, I have a 707 organization called East Tennessee Elite, where we do 7-on-7, but teach the kids the games and concepts. Matter of fact, we got a tournament tomorrow. The only one we're doing this year at Farragut High School up here. So we partner with Pylon, and they come in and you get to see a lot of skilled guys, but it's amazing to see how the game is transitioned into a passing game. And if I could go back and do it all over again at Knoxville Preparatory School where I'm at now as the principal, we're just a single gender school of boys, sixth grade. When we start football in eighth grade, my goal is by the time we hit 10th grade, when they're eligible for TSAA, we'll be single A. It's to win the state championship. I got some dogs here that are sixth graders now, but I want them to be mentally prepared in the game. So we're going to spend the next 2.5 years focusing on knowledge, technique, the basics, understanding, because being able to understand, oh, guess what? They come up here in a trip set. Okay, the third receiver's on the end of the line of scrimmage. He's on the line, and the outside receiver's on the line. That's an ineligible receiver. He can't go downfield. It's a run.
Yeah.
Or it's an RPO if he's going to throw it behind line of scrimmage. If he's going to fake a dive and throw the bubble, it's an RPO. So it's first thing is it's got to be a run. It's those small things. Or if I'm playing quarterback, they've been playing too high the whole game, and now this guy's rocked down a little bit further towards the outside linebacker. They're rotating to something. They're bringing pressure.
Yeah.
So where's your hot read at? Like those are all the things that I learned on the fly. But that's why from year 1 to year 2, my goal was to equip myself with knowledge so the game would slow down in NFL. I'll never forget the very first snap in minicamp, OTAs in 2004, and I got in it, and I thought Steve was in there, and I thought, Lord have mercy. It's like, whatever you do, don't screw this up. And man, by the time they snapped that damn ball to hand it off, I never got out of my stance. And Steve goes, he says, "Hey, Big Swole." He said, a lot faster than college, ain't it? I said, yeah. He's like, you be all right. Going back over there to the next play. I was like, wow. But again, just being ready, man. For me, it was being equipped with the knowledge in year 2.
Definitely. That's cool. And talk about Steve Watterson. I had Steve on as well, and Steve's a funny guy. He's a good people.
Oh, he's an outstanding dude, man. Coach Walker, man, that dude he always walked around yoked up. And I'd be like, bro, like, how are you this old and you all yoked up? And he just loved to work out. And he was loved to be in the weight room. And I love lifting weights at that time. Now I don't lift weights now because my body's sore. And plus, I don't have time waiting for the summer to get here when I get a little free time and get back to lifting weights. But he's a great dude. Taught me a lot about sports and weightlifting from an NFL perspective on how to maintain your body instead of trying to go all out.
Yeah. All right. 2 more questions and I'll let you go, man.
Okay.
What was your favorite part about playing football?
Oh, the camaraderie with your teammates.
Yeah.
You ask any player, they're going to tell you it's the time. For me, I love practice. The games, I hate it.
Okay.
I love the practice, but I love the grind. I'm a grinder. And that grind with them in practice, being in the locker room, cutting up, kicking it afterwards. That's probably the biggest thing I loved about playing team sports, building that camaraderie and brotherhood that we did. And, going out there and rooting on your teammate, watching them get better and watch them getting the opportunity, to live out a dream that they had as well, too. And as we now say, watch them go and get their bag of money and getting their next contract in, or seeing them have success and, winning, titles and things.
Definitely. Now, what was the most memorable game or moment as a Tennessee Titan?
Oh, wow. 2 of them. One's funny.
Okay, go ahead.
When I was doing kickoffs and, I was in UT, our main kickoff guy was Corey Larkins, who's like one of my best friends to this day. And I was the off back. And I'd get some kicks here and there. So Titans were like, well, we need somebody to do kickoff returns. Like, shit, I'll do it. And I do it. So I did it for a while. And then one day we're playing in Houston, Texas at home. And the sun shielded my vision. And it hit me on the face mask. Boom. And it rolled forward. And I thought, holy shit. They ended up recovering it. And they started like on the 15. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get cut tomorrow. I was like, and I'll never forget that because I always thought, man, that's when I got demoted from doing kickoff returns. So I was like, okay, I'll go back to being a fullback. And so I'll never forget that. But the best memory of being a Titan was the Monday Night Football game against Green Bay, and I got my first touchdown. We went up there and we beat the brakes off Green Bay. I think Chris went for like 130, 140. Everybody was going. I scored my first touchdown on Monday Night Football, which is like a dream come true because I watched Monday Night Football as a kid every single Monday and doing it at Lambeau Field
Hmm.
uh, and against Brett Favre and just the whole history behind it. And it's probably my most memorable moment because my touchdown we ran it was 115. I think what we call it time, and it's basically same thing I used to run at Tennessee was Rambo 6 power B gap, which is acting like I'm about to kick out, I slip into the flat, and Steve threw it to me, and I was running, and dude hit my ankles, and I thought, man, if I don't get this touchdown, I'm gonna get ridiculed. So next thing I just dove like this in midair, and they ended up getting the shot of it in the paper up there in Green Bay. And so fast forward for a birthday gift, or I think a wedding gift for my best friend who was my fullback in high school,
Hmm.
gave me the photo. And so the photo sits on my fireplace to this day. And so that's one of my favorite memories ever. And shout out to Brad Davis, who's my brother. Love him to death. He got me the picture.
And how was that feeling scoring? Did you do any celebration? I mean, again, it's your first NFL touchdown. Like that's pretty wild.
I I'm a if you got to get to know me to see the funny side and private side of me when I'm really silly.
Uh-huh.
But for me, no, I jumped up. I was excited, running to the sideline. First person was Drew Bennett. He's like, "You got you one," and he congratulated, and I congratulated everybody as I went over there. But if you ask anybody, I'm not a dancer. They
Okay.
tell me I have no rhythm, and so I didn't dance, didn't do anything. I just went on to the sideline with the ball.
Did your thing.
Did my thing. Yeah.
Well, Troy. Before I let you go, man, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate uh you playing for the Titans, and even though it wasn't what you planned on, and I wish we didn't cut you, we still enjoyed your sacrifice and your blood, sweat, and tears and playing for the Titans, man.
Well, I have to say this, even though it didn't turn out the way I wanted to,
Mhm.
just because I was got my 3 years in, I can say this about the NFL, and kudos to them with their continuing education program. With forget the name of the program which is ran through Life. I think it's what it's called. I was able to go and get a master's in education, and I'm going back now as an interim principal to get an endorsement to my master's. And I'm thankful to the NFL for allowing me to be able to do such a wonderful thing in my life and to be able to impact young men, particularly here at Knoxville Preparatory School in Knoxville, Tennessee, as well as the Titans for drafting me. And if they hadn't drafted me, regardless of how it turned out, now being 44, I wouldn't be in the position I am. If it wasn't for their generosity. So very thankful to the NFL and the Titans.
And that's awesome. Again, it's awesome what you're doing now, especially life after football, that you can still give back to the community. And congratulations on being the interim principal and all your accomplishments, man, off the field as well. So
No, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
that's pretty cool, man. So always, like I said, you always are a Titan. You wore the uniform. You're a certified Titan forever. And I appreciate you having on, man. I appreciate you and thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome, Alex. Take care, brother.
I know, buddy.